Go Buffs, baby!
The Colorado Buffaloes come into Week 6 off a closely contested loss against the number 23 team in the country, BYU. And now the Buffs are back on the road, hoping for a better road trip to Texas this time around. They will take on the TCU Horned Frogs, led by Josh Hoover. We are in for an incredible offensive battle to watch this weekend. I am Liam Howard alongside Xavier McNevitz, Harrison Simeon, Aditya Malcolm, We are ahead of an incredible game where two offenses are going to be showcased. It's going to be very fun to watch. But looking back this past week at BYU, which I briefly mentioned, who or what disappointed you in the loss?
I got to say the play calling, right? I mean, first two drives, Buffs go up 14 points, right? You see some creativity. You see some wildcat. You see some motions. And then it reverts back to the boring old Pat Shimmer offense. And then all of a sudden, drives are stalling, can't sustain. Their defense is staying on the field. Offense is punting. Saw a lot of Damon Greaves once again. So I do got to say that play calling was pretty rough.
I'm thinking the second half offense lacked a lot of rhythm because when they came out in the first half, they were shooting like 2 touchdowns in the first half. They came out, the BYU defense seemed to have locked in more on Caden Salter's running ability, and the offense lacked rhythm. And obviously, the big wearing issue is Deion's timeout usage. We still had 2 left, or the Buffs still had 2 left. Excuse me, and that ruined the Buffs' chances to do any more good in the game.
Yeah, I see a lot that went wrong coaching-wise. But Caden Salter has to adjust. Mm-hmm. He has to still step up to the plate. It was pretty disappointing. He gained about as much confidence as he could have in a game like he had the week prior against Wyoming. He played electric. He was decisive. He was confident. He was accurate. But I didn't see it as much today. He was accurate when he was on time and on target, or more on time, on target is accurate. But there wasn't really any adjustments made after that first quarter because he said they spied him more. Mm-hmm. And you're a dual-threat quarterback. You should be used to getting spied on. You're a senior. Mm-hmm. You've probably faced that time and time again at Liberty, and you've probably faced that now. But when a defense makes that type of adjustment, you have to have a second gear that you can turn on. And there were some throws late that we'll probably touch on later that he just had to make. It wasn't about play calling. They were set up. They were easy throws on big third downs, crucial third downs that could have kept the Buffs rolling on offense, but he didn't make them.
Yeah, excited to see you break that down in the film later. We take a very good look at him. I agree with you. I was disappointed, mostly in the fact that Caden Salter started off that first quarter looking very good. That was the best we've seen Caden Salter, I felt like, up until, excluding the Wyoming game. He looked very good in the Wyoming game. But, in terms of playing at a Big 12 level, that was the best I think that he has played. But then it really went and fell off a cliff in that second half, and it was not the consistency that Colorado has been scrounging for at the quarterback position. So ultimately, that let them down in a big way. But we're going to look at now the close loss. It was a close loss against a ranked team.
Right.
What impressed you in that?
So that run defense actually impressed me quite a bit. I mean, at least in the first half, right? Once they stayed on the field, they got a little bit tired. And because the offense wasn't sustaining drives, right? I mean, this was a run defense that had struggled all year, and they were able to stuff a run game that averaged 262 yards per game. L.J. Martin averaged 8.6 yards per carry. Of course, he still ended up averaging 4 yards a carry, right? But that inside run stuff was pretty solid. It was the contain that struggled more for the run defense.
Going into the game, I expected us to get blown out. The Buffs, obviously facing a ranked team such as BYU, obviously much skill for the Cougars. But they surprised all of us by the way that they held on. throughout the entire game. Obviously, unfortunate at the end with the interception, but I feel like Caden Salter really, he really stepped up and showed what his skill was in that game and what's to come, hopefully for the next few games.
Yeah, he showed his ceiling. He showed some promise, but I think what really helped him and the entire offense is you saw the offensive line step up in physicality in a big way. You know, Coach Prime talked about it. That run game was what got them ahead. It was the Wildcat with Draylon Miller. That was really cool to see a nice little new wrinkle. But what helped that work were those big boys up front. Right. Were the Xavier Hills, were the Larry Johnsons, the Jordan Seaton, who's now the top graded pass protector in all of college football.
Right.
He, along with those 4 transfers, have come together beautifully. And they've, impressed against some lesser teams like Delaware and Wyoming, but this was a prove-it game, and they proved everything.
Yeah, I love the defense. I talked going into this game about how Colorado's defense needed to match up with BYU in a way that wasn't necessarily going pound for pound, step for step, but just keeping their team in the game. And I believe that they did that. I believe that they did that. Coach Prime didn't think so after the game. He was asked about the defense. He said, "I'm not impressed. Next question." But I thought that defensive unit did really well. They did their job, in my opinion. And when you're going against a team like a BYU who is ranked, that's a very impressive game. That's an impressive game for them, in my opinion. I think they gave their team a chance to win. Did the Buffs exceed your expectations in this game, even in the loss?
Well, I will say yes. Last week in my pick'ems, I said that BYU takes a game by a couple possessions, and of course they had an opportunity to get to a two-possession game. But I would say, yeah, the Buffs did impress me and they did exceed expectations, but they still found a way to disappoint, right? I mean, they still found a way to put themselves in hard situations where they had to go on a 2-minute drill that ended poorly in Caden Salter throwing that game-sealing interception. So, yeah, but they still disappointed.
I feel like the team didn't reach its full potential. They definitely had the skill to win that game, and as I say, that saying, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I feel like they did that because there were many moments where the Buffs could have sealed that game away with the game-winning field goal, or like the running the 2-minute offense that Xavier mentioned, that they could have probably won that game. So they definitely met, but at the end they lowered the expectations for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I wasn't at the desk last week, but I would have picked BYU by 2 touchdowns. I mean, I had people talking about this being a full-on boat race in BYU's favor, but they did manage to impress, especially with that start. But then when you have that start, you have to finish. And against Wyoming, we saw a little bit of the defense fall off. We saw, again, there were some very untimely penalties. While the defense played better than I expected against BYU's offense, I just thought they wouldn't be able to stop them. BYU was going to drop 40. There was not a full 60-minute effort on either end, really, especially more the offense. I think the defense came out with some physicality, but the offense, really, you saw the drop-off drastically after the first quarter when BYU made 1 or 2 adjustments, and you have to see a counterpunch, and you didn't see it.
Yeah, I think even though I picked the Buffs by 1 million on the show last week, I wasn't feeling super confident about that. I felt like BYU brought a very good team to the table. Obviously, that number next to their name holds a lot of weight. But I thought Colorado picked up nicely from that Wyoming game. It was a bit questionable how they were going to make that adjustment up to that type of opponent. But I think that they did a solid job of that. And you think back to the team that Colorado brought to play BYU last season, that is a stacked team that they went and played this BYU squad with and got demolished. And now you see this Colorado team taking BYU to the limit. That really impresses me. But to get a closer look at that game, Mr. Harrison Simeon is going to join Leo Rivera in looking at the film and giving us a closer look at Caden Salter's performance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of ScoBuff Sports Film Room. I am Leo Rivera IV, joined alongside Harrison Simeon. And today we're going to be breaking down a couple of Caden Salter's plays from Colorado's matchup against the BYU Cougars.
Yeah, there was some good, there was some bad, and there was some very ugly. But we're going to start off early where we have a 2-by-1 set. That means 2 receivers to Caden Salter's left, One up top, isolated on his right, some press coverage, and we're going to look at Caden Salter make a decisive throw here against man coverage. We have a blitz, and look at this pickup by the Buffs offensive line.
Yeah, we got a slide going to the right here. Michael Welch is going to come in and fill. And then we get a body on a body. Everyone's lined up. This is textbook. Great job by Zarian McGill shifting the protection.
Yeah, and Michael Welch, he's kind of hanging on for dear life, but he does a good job enough as you can hit that play button. As Salter makes a layered throw, held off enough by Welch to Omarion Miller for a big first down strike down the field. So we're going to look at a different angle, as it was a great job by Welch just to hold off that blitzing linebacker, and Salter just stands in, calm, collected. He knows his pocket. He knows how good his offensive line is, and he makes that throw. So now, later on, I believe we're now in the third quarter, we have probably the best play of Salter's day. And this offensive line is going to make a really nice move that set him up.
They are. You're going to see Zy Chrisley here pulling from the left side to give this simulation that Michael Welch is going to come on a little bit of a sweep here. But what that's going to do is freeze these linebackers right here who are keying in on the shortening game. And that's going to open up a beautiful passing lane.
And then you have Draylon Miller, who's in that passing lane, going right up the seam. You have a little fake, and that linebacker, he holds off and opens up Draylon Miller to get behind the defense for a touchdown to go ahead and make a big play. But now we're going to go back to the first quarter, back to that very first drive where Salter looks good. The offense is clicking, nothing's going wrong, but it's a little bit of a tease of the ugly to come. It works out in the Buffs' favor, but just give this a play.
Yeah, one player I want you guys to watch is big Larry Johnson here. Look at the technique as he's trying to wash out the defensive end. Salter needs to have a little bit more trust in him, as we're going to talk about later in a couple plays.
So yeah, he has really good tackle play, but Salter bails out of this clean pocket. Pause right here. Before that, off the screen, Zach Atkins, tight end, wide open for a touchdown. But you see Salter kind of see the defense adjusting to his legs, and then he just tries to run around everywhere and make a play after his first read isn't open. But in this case, the left side of the offensive line, Seaton, and look at Xavier Hill right there. What a beautiful pass pro. Rep right there, and Salter's able to scramble in for the score to put the Buffs ahead. Though, again, it wasn't quite the best decision on his part, though it worked out.
It wasn't, but I'm glad you highlighted big Xavier Hill here. Look at the big man celebrate down here. He knows he helped make that touchdown possible.
These offensive linemen have made these touchdowns possible all season long for Colorado, whether it's the run, whether it's the pass. They are the foundation of everything, and that's what Colorado has looked for these past several years. But as we look at just some of the ugly, this isn't necessarily on the offensive line, so I can just go into this breakdown. Yeah, go into this play. But pause right here. As you saw for a second, that's Draylon Miller wide open for a first down, and Salter was looking his way. He was looking his way, but then, for whatever reason, just hesitates. This is a third down in the fourth quarter. A big game. You're down 3, a ranked team, you're at home, you have to make this throw. You have a clean pocket. You have Draylon Miller top of your screen, but then Salter doesn't quite like what he sees. Then he looks to his left, has a man open in Joseph Williams, and you can play it right now, and then just gets batted down by the line of scrimmage, which is an unlucky break, but it could have been avoided if he was just a bit more decisive. So final play here, it's the one everyone's been talking about, the 3rd and 3 on one of the Buffs' final drives. You have a split back set, so Michael Welch over here, Draylon Miller over here, and what the Buffs are going to run here is their money play. It's 3rd and short, and they're going to run mesh.
Yeah, they are, and they're going to do a great job here with the protection as well, Harrison. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys are crowded near the box. Now, this guy we probably wouldn't count in the box, but for Colorado's purposes, they're going to be alerting on him. And look at the way they shift the protection. Now, watch Larry Johnson specifically. He's doing a good job of washing his man out, but Caden Salter gets timid because of the pressure he feels.
Yeah, and play it real quick. Just wanted to explain the route a little bit. They point, pause it right, or a little bit more. Right here. You have 2 drags, one drag from this side, one drag from that side, and you have Hakeem Williams up here going to sit in the middle of the formation. This is a great route great concept against zone, but what this is going to do is going to also, or actually it's a great concept against man, but in this case, BYU is going to be running zone, and they run kind of a disguise and then send in an edge rusher from out here. And you have Joseph Williams and Sincere Brown going to sit down in the middle of the pocket of space, and both are wide open for first downs. And this is a big play. But what do you see? Is Salter sees this guy, number 47, I believe, or maybe it was 37, that's in a spy, which means he's not worried about guarding these wide receivers, and Salter should know this. But play it real quick.
Yeah, and if you talk about right here real quick on this freeze frame, look how clean this pocket is for Caden Salter. He has all the room in the world to step up and stay calm and deliver a strike to any of these receivers. But look at his feet. He is already off platform. He has already decided that protection is broke down, and this puts him out of position immediately.
Yeah, he's just indecisive here, and he doesn't really look, and then he's already bailing out. Pause it right here. I guess you can keep playing it because you had the receivers, and then Salter just falls out and mentally collapses, which costs Colorado a big sequence that could have put them ahead, at least set them up to tie this game. But in a close game like that, you have to look for decisiveness from your quarterback. You have to look for key reads. You can't have a quarterback that's going to give up after the first read isn't there. And while Caden Salter had some good, there's a lot to work on ahead of TCU this weekend. Back to you guys at the desk.
All right, thank you for that in-depth analysis. That game to this game, now going to face TCU. Welcome back, Harrison. Thank you very much for the in-depth analysis of that game. But let's look at TCU. Let's look at another offense that is looking to give the Buffaloes trouble. How do the Buffs stop Josh Hoover and TCU's high-powered offense?
I mean, TCU just has a complete air raid offense. I mean, if you want to have any chance at slowing down Josh Hoover, who I think is third in the Big 12 in passing, I mean, your defensive backs are just going to have to show out. Preston Hodge, Needham McKinney, right? Carter Stoutmeyer. I mean, they need to show out, and they haven't been too impressive this season when that was supposed to be one of the stronger position groups heading into this year. So the DPs are just going to have to show out. I mean, simple answer.
I believe the key for the Buffaloes in this game is for the D-line to work against the offensive line of TCU, is to fight them in the trenches, pressure Josh Hoover to make bad throws, make bad reads, let the DBs of the Buffs defense be able to read those passes and be able to hopefully intercept them.
Yeah, I mean, I know you went with the secondary, you went with the first level. I got the second level defenders. Those linebackers have not really been up to par this year. Martavius French has been the only one that's been a mainstay. Jeremiah Brown, Reginald Hughes, and then even a little Kylan Salter mixed in there. They haven't quite been, at the same level as Colorado last year, where we saw that be the key to their defense improvement. Levante Bentley and Nakai Hill-Green, they're missing them right now. So I'm looking to a guy like Martavius French to have a big game. And, we've seen it. We've seen him be able to make plays, but can he consistently fit into run gaps? Can he consistently get out into pass coverage and make plays? The Buffs defense has not forced a turnover since week 2 against Delaware. Mm-hmm. The Buffs need an early turnover to make an offense respect them. Otherwise, it's going to be walk downs all day.
And I believe no interceptions on the season. Is that correct?
DJ McKinney in Georgia Tech.
One, yes, the Georgia Tech game. That's what I'm looking for from this Buffs defense specifically. And I'm looking at linebackers. I'm looking at the secondary when I say this. An interception. 2 interceptions. I said this about the BYU game, that if the Buffs were going to win that game and if their defense was going to get a leg up on BYU, they would need to create turnovers. They would need to steal a drive. I think the same is true here against TCU, if not more, when you have an offense like Josh Hoover and company who are airing the ball out the way that they are and have really just had their way offensively throughout this entire course of the season. But that was not quite entirely the case against Arizona State. Fresh off that Arizona State loss, do you think the Buffaloes can find anything in that loss that they can then expose themselves?
I mean, Arizona State had 207 rushing yards against TCU, right? The Buffs are going to need to establish the run, whether that's Draylon Miller getting the ball in the backfield, whether that's Michael Welch getting the ball in the backfield, whether that's Caden Salter using his legs and getting active in the run game, right? I think the Buffs are going to have to rely on some of that creativity and some of those nuances that we saw on Saturday against BYU so that they can establish a run, because I think that's the only way that this CU offense really gets going. I think they'll be able to pass on TCU, but if they establish a run and steal possession, like you said, it could be a very different outcome than what bookies are making it.
I think the key for the ASU game is to sustain long drives and let the defense rest on the bench, because obviously Jordan Tyson, Sam Levitt, very great players. They're ranked for a reason in the last AP poll. I think letting the offense stay out there, like make the drives longer, let the defense rest so they're ready to defend, rather the cornerbacks are ready to defend Jordan Tyson and limit Sam Levitt, that they can hopefully win that game. And I'm sure Arizona State wants to prove themselves as a ranked again after losing Cam Scadaboo, and I think that's the key for CU in that game.
Yeah, I mean, you said it correctly. I mean, the best defense is a good offense, and especially with the Buffs disappointing on the defensive end this year, you hope the offense can kind of play ball control, but I'm looking for them to air it out. I'm looking for Caden Salter to restore his confidence after a grimy last 30 minutes last week. I think that TCU can be thrown on. They're 15th in the Big 12 in pass yards allowed per game, 15th out of 16. That is doable. The only team worse is Oklahoma State, bottom feeder. So I think for Salter, this has to be a day where he trusts his receivers. Sincere Brown, no catches the other game. Joseph Williams, barely involved. Omarion Miller, you saw spotty involvement for all the receivers. There wasn't a lot. So I think there can be some balance, obviously, to keep the defense fresh, but there has to be some short passes, a little bit. This could be a nice little day for Pat Shurmur if they get TCU to maybe respect the run at first, and then you drop those deep shots to Sincere Brown, Omarion Miller. This could be a pretty good day for the offense.
Giving Pat Shurmur too much credit.
Yeah,
Maybe a little. In my humble opinion.
I'm just motivating. I'm motivational always.
Yeah,
I think 2 weeks ago I said I needed to get him some shots of Red Bull, and what happened? Buffs had their best offensive day of the year.
Hey.
I mean, Coach Prime said he loves his coordinators, so I don't think Pat Shurmur's going anywhere anytime soon. So might as well motivate him. Well, in my opinion, looking at what Arizona State did to TCU, I want to look at Sam Levitt, and we saw him last season put up some great performances and be a real spark plug on their playoff run. This season, we've seen him make some more mistakes, and he's made some more mistakes. He's been a more mistake-prone quarterback, and TCU forced that. They forced him to throw 2 interceptions in that game. Arizona State forced Josh Hoover to throw 2 interceptions in their game, and that's something that I think the Colorado Buffaloes can now learn from. They can now see when Josh Hoover was thrown into those situations where he was having to make bad throws, and they can understand how they need to set that pressure up onto him. They can understand how they need to layer their secondary to force him into those bad situations and force him to make those bad throws that lead to turnovers. And if Colorado's going to make their way back in this game, I think it's going to have to be through that turnover.
That secondary's got to be healthy, though. R.J. Johnson needs to come back. Tion Parks has looked completely lost.
He's struggled.
Yes. So it's going to need to be a lot of time spent in the film room for Colorado looking at what Arizona State's defense did to Josh Hoover. But specifically looking at one player on this TCU team, who is one guy that stands out to you?
I mean, he's been the talk of the show. I'm take the obvious pick. It's Josh Hoover, right? I mean, he's their star quarterback. He's passed for 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns on 66% completion. He's the player that the Buffs are going to have to look out for.
I would say Bud Clark, a defensive back for them. I think his ability to just swing momentum, create turnovers, create the receivers take bad routes, bad decisions. I think that's something that the Buffs need to look out for on offense.
Yeah, while the offensive line has looked really good, I mean, they have a beast of an edge rusher over there at TCU, and Kalen Elam's-Orr. He has 3 sacks on the year, second on the team in total tackles, I think first in solo tackles. So that's a guy that is a disruptor, and if the Buffs want to establish a run, they're going to need to be wary of him as well, because he can make tackles and get to the quarterback.
I'm going to talk about a guy that I think Colorado, at least I hope for their sake that they're not overlooking. That's their top wide receiver, Eric McAllister. Yeah. He went without a target in the Arizona State game because of an injury. He was mostly just out there to take up a body on defense.
Be a decoy.
Exactly. He was a decoy type of guy. Didn't get a target, but he still, even without getting a target in that game, is their leading receiver in this air raid offense. He still has the most receiving yards, 320 yards on just 13 receptions, and he's got a touchdown or 3 touchdowns with that as well. Colorado can't lose sight of him because he didn't play last week. They have to focus on him, and I've been mentioning their secondary needing to create turnovers. They're going to have to focus on him if they're going to do so. But let's take a step back now and look at the Big 12 as a whole. This is one of my favorite segments. We get to look around and see how the other teams are doing around the Big 12. So let's look at the team that Colorado just played, the BYU Cougars. Would you say that this game has kind of exposed them as frauds?
I wouldn't say frauds necessarily, but they're definitely not contenders as I expected them to be, right? I mean, you got the true freshman at quarterback. You got Barry Bachmeier at quarterback. He was flustered at times when that Colorado defense got to him, forcing passes. But he still rushed for 108 yards on the ground, which the Buffs have struggled against this year, those quarterbacks that can scamper and get away. But BYU also played not really any good competition before the Buffaloes. So I wouldn't say frauds necessarily, but definitely not contenders. Maybe an 8-win team. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're not frauds, but they're not contenders for a CFP game or a Big 12 championship game. I think they're good, but they're not going to make noise in the Big 12, even in the national stage. I think that showing that they weren't able to win against the Buffs by that much, by a big margin, shows that they're not very promising to be a good pick for the championship.
Boy, I wish that's a little disrespectful to the Buffs at that point. But I actually do think BYU is still in it. They haven't looked the most impressive of any of those Big 12 teams, but they've found ways to win, and I think they still are very well coached. Kalani Sitake is really building something. And remember, Bear Bachmeier, true freshman. He's going to grow and get better as the season goes on, and that's going to open up the run game with LJ Martin. He didn't look too great. He had kind of an off night the other night, but that's a credit to the Buffs defense. So right. I will say, the BYU is still in it. I wouldn't have them as a top contender, but they're definitely in the mix.
Yeah, and we just showed you the scores around the Big 12 just a second ago, and BYU noticeably in a close contest there. And when it's a team like Colorado, I think you have to look at that game and be a little concerned if you're BYU. I think that the term frauds is kind of depends on the context. So if you're saying frauds in terms of are they making the college football playoff, I'd say yes. I don't think that's the competition that they're in. I would even say that that's the case in the Big 12 as the Big 12 championship race because they have not had any major tests up until this point, and the first major test they do get against Colorado this close, and I think that this is a Buffs team that has a lot of questions right now. BYU was presumed to be a team with a lot of answers, and they just barely found those answers against Colorado. But shifting gears now, let's look at a team that's been rolling. The Cincinnati Bearcats, ever since they lost that first game to Nebraska, they've been on fire. What is their ceiling?
So I just want to point out that last week I was only one to take Cincinnati against Kansas, right?
Hey.
I personally really like that offense. That Cincinnati offense is legit. Against Kansas, they had over 500 yards total on the ground, but that defense also allowed 500 yards. I think Kansas, had passed for about 400 yards or something stupid. It was ridiculous. 445,
Three tuds.
And 3 tutties, right? So I don't think that the Cincinnati defense is where it needs to be, but I do think that Cincinnati offense is pretty legit. So I think that their ceiling's around 8, 9, 7 wins.
Yeah, I think if we're going in the terms of records, I would say 8-4, 9-3. I think they're projected for maybe a solid bowl game, maybe a berth for a Big 12 championship game, and maybe a CFP. But I don't think they're that up there in terms of because the Big 12 obviously is a very good conference. Teams at the top, Iowa State like that, very good teams. I don't think they're meant for something greater than a bowl game this season.
Yeah, I'll be the horse holder right here. I think their ceiling is about what we saw last night, or this past weekend against Kansas. Kansas isn't some world beater. It wasn't a shocking upset. I think they're about on the same tier if we're looking at the Big 12 of teams. So that's a toss-up game. And while it was still impressive, their offense has looked very well schemed and can play well when it's rolling. Brandon Sorsby, solid quarterback, and when he's in structure, he's going to be good. But when they face some steeper competition down the line, I don't see them matching up. I think their offense can keep them in games, like I said, but they're not going to win more than maybe 6 or 7 games.
Something like that. I think that I agree with you. They get into those games against the tougher opponents in the Big 12, the Texas Techs of the world, and that's when you're going to start to see that offense not really be able to keep up and win them games necessarily. But I think that if you're Cincinnati, you're in games as long as Brendan Sorsby is your quarterback and he's on the field. Leads the team in rushing, having a great season, throwing the ball as well. I think that while offense doesn't win championships, offense keeps you in games and can keep you in a shootout. If you score every time you touch the ball, you're going to win football games. And so I think that the ceiling, I'd say, is about 9 wins.
Yeah.
I think that's lofty, but I think that as long as he is doing everything for them on that offense, that gives the defense time to catch up, this team could soar moving forward. But another surprising win that we saw this past week was Kansas State defeating UCF to end their undefeated season. Are the Wildcats back?
They still have to prove it, in my opinion, right? I mean, they finally were able to run the ball. Offense got rolling. Former Buffalo Dylan Edwards finally back in the lineup, rushes for 160 yards, right? So I think that K-State could be back, right? And, of course, Liam, you're happy about that one because they're your Big 12 pick, right? Oh. But I think that K-State could be back, but they got to prove it.
I think after that first game, that international game against Rocco Becht and the Cyclones, I think obviously there was a bunch of questions about if they should still be a top contender. But I think after this past week against, you said, Xavier, that they're back. I believe that with their skill and with Dylan Edwards as their back from injury, I think they should be a real contender come in the Big 12.
It depends on what you mean by back. I mean, do you mean this team can win the Big 12, or do you mean this team can make a bowl and go 7-5, 8-4? And if you mean the latter, I think they are. I think Dylan Edwards looked legit and looked like one of the more explosive, dynamic weapons in the conference. Even though it's UCF, I'm not super high on UCF, but I do think they're better than many of their preseason expectations. I think they're a solid team, and Kansas State made light work of them. I think Avery Johnson is still one of the most talented in terms of just raw talent, quarterbacks in the conference. And so I think they can win 8 games. I think they can, while they don't have much room for error for that, they can get to a bowl pretty handily and, be a team that is a winner, but are they a conference winner? That's the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I certainly hope they're back if I want to make it look like I know what I'm talking about. But to be honest, I'm kind of with you. I think that they need to prove it still. I think that UCF, I was not super high on this team. I think I even though I picked them last week, I did mention the fact that they had a very close contest with Jacksonville State and won that game by a touchdown. I did mention that was, the rain delay could have affected that a little bit, but I think that this kind of showed what my fears were about UCF. I think this showed a little bit more about exposing UCF than showing who Kansas State really is. Dylan Edwards being back is huge for them, and that was a big reason behind me picking them to win the Big 12 this year, was that he was going to have a great season, and if he does, that's certainly encouraging for them. But again, I think there's a lot left to be seen, and it needs to be proven by the Wildcats. But we are going to hop back just one more time to look back this previous week. I went around the tailgates ahead of the Colorado-BYU game. We're going to see how some people were getting ready for the game. All right, Big 12 opener here in Boulder. The Colorado Buffaloes ready to face the Storm and Mormons. We're going to go see how people are getting ready for the game. You are watching Tailgate Takeover. Let's go. Ready. How are we getting ready for the game today?
No problem. I'm already ready.
Already ready?
I arrived ready.
All right, showed up ready?
Do you want to see my jacket?
Yeah, we got to see your jacket.
All right, do this.
Okay, all right. Here for the gold out. Here for the gold rush. I like it. Okay. How are we feeling about the game today? Do we think we're going to win?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course we're going to win.
How many points do you think we're going to win by?
That's not important. As long as we get a W, we're good.
All right. I like to see it.
We're going to go 2-0 on BYU. Our volleyball team beat them the other day.
Okay.
And we are now.
All right, how many points are we beating them by?
We're going to beat them by 13.
13? All right, that's a pretty good score. Let's get right over here. We're ready to go.
Here's the boys.
How we feeling about the game?
Let's go, baby.
Hey, feeling great?
Bust my 20.
Bust by 20?
No, bust my 20.
By a mil. Okay.
Mil? I'll take a mil. I'll take a mil.
All right. Who's having a big game today?
I think the defense.
Defense, okay.
The defense.
Defense stepping up? All right.
I think Finian.
Okay, all right.
Safety. He's going to
Yes,
have
sir.
a great game. He's going to have an interception. We're going to have
Interception,
two
okay.
turnovers as a defense.
2 turnovers.
Jordan Seaton.
Oh, okay.
He's going to have no sacks allowed.
Their quarterback wears number 47. How do we feel about a quarterback repping number 47?
47?
He wears 47. Yes.
Isn't that a linebacker?
That's like a linebacker's number, I would think, right? But he wears
the
47.
Mormons.
It's the Mormons. Do we think a real quarterback can wear 47?
I think I think he can come in here and wear 47,
Yeah.
but he's got to wear number when coming out.
All right, okay.
Yeah, because he gonna get his number.
Yes, sir. All right. Let's go, Bucks. Yeah, appreciate y'all. We're just seeing how hyped we are for the game today.
I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, ours goes to 11.
Goes to 11? Okay, yeah. Oh, do we think we're getting a win over BYU? Yeah?
Can we say bad words in front of BYU
Yes, of
students?
course.
Okay, heck yeah.
Heck yeah. How hyped are we for the game today?
We're so hyped!
We're so hyped. Let's go! Let's go! How BYU? BYU? Go, Buffs!
What is a BYU?
What is a BYU? That's right.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Actually, political propaganda.
What is BYU?
Let's go, Buffs! CU students certainly out here consuming things you would not see around Utah ahead of a BYU game. How hyped are we for the game today?
So hyped!
How much do we think the Colorado's beating BYU by today?
At least 7, at least 7, at least 10, at least 10.
Okay.
10.
What do we think of BYU?
Fuck the Cougs!
Is there anything else that we're doing to get prepared for the game today?
We're just hanging out, tailgating, you know the vibe. Yep, of course.
All right. We all enjoy the game. Thank you for hanging out. All right, so that's a wrap on this week's Tailgate Takeover. We'll send it back to the studio. BYU about to come play the Buffaloes. We're heading inside. All right, so that is a wrap on this week's Tailgate Takeover, and it is now time for the Pick'ems. We're going to go around the Big 12 first, looking at West Virginia taking on the number 23 BYU Cougars. Who do you got?
So that BYU running game is stout. I mean, if the Buffs kind of shut it down or not, right? And West Virginia struggled against Utah and Devin Dampier in that running game. It's in Provo, so it's a pretty straightforward pick for me. I got the Cougars taking it by a couple touchdowns.
Yes, I'm taking the BYU Cougars. Obviously, the run game, Bear Bachmeier, very true freshman, very impressive. Obviously, at home, the elevation in Utah will be a tough, tall order for West Virginia, so I got BYU in this one.
Yeah, I think this game we saw West Virginia get blown out back-to-back. I think they're going to come out strong. I think they're going to come out with their hair on fire. I think this could be a closer game than most expect. But I think BYU holds off a feisty West Virginia team that I think will be motivated this week.
Yeah, I expect BYU to get tested once again. I think it's going to be similar to what we saw against Colorado, but I personally am not a huge believer in West Virginia this season. I think that BYU, even if they are in a contested matchup like that, will make those same halftime adjustments that they made against Colorado, and they're going to be able to pick it back up and take the win. But next up is a super exciting offensive battle. The number 14 Iowa State Cyclones on the road to face Cincinnati.
So the Cyclones offense absolutely balled out against Arizona. This one's just going to be an absolute offensive slobber knocker. But I do think that the Cyclones are going to take it by a score at Cincinnati.
Yeah, I got the Cyclones this one too. Rocco Becht, very impressive quarterback. Brendan Sorbsy, also impressive, but I feel that Iowa State's both sides of the ball are more stout and more impressive than Cincinnati's both sides of the ball, so I got Iowa State in this one.
Yeah, you said it. Iowa State's defense is extremely good. It's not just about Rocco Becht. It's about that defense that's very well coached. Matt Campbell, one of the best coaches in the conference. He's built a perennial powerhouse on both sides, and I think that balance is going to be a little too much. It's going to throw Sorsby off his game, and I think Iowa State's going to take it home.
Yeah, I promised Leo Rivera that I would be a Iowa State believer if they could beat Arizona this week. And not only did they beat Arizona, they stomped them. So I'm officially a believer in Iowa State as of this day. I think that this is going to be a really fun game to watch. This is one of those games you sit down on a Saturday on like a multi-view screen and you find yourself paying attention to that game more than the ranked versus ranked matchup going on to the left, because both offenses are going to be airing it out. It's going to be very exciting. But I do think Iowa State has the fortitude. They've been tested. Last week was a statement win. I'm going to take the Cyclones over Cincinnati. But next up, we look at Kansas State, who may or may not be back, against Baylor. Who do you got?
So like I said earlier, Kansas State still has to prove it. I mean, Baylor also has one of the best passing offenses. It's top 2 in the Big 12 behind the best team in the Big 12, Texas Tech, right? I do think that K-State's going to have to shut down Sawyer Robertson and Baylor, but I don't think they will be able to because that Kansas State defense isn't really as good as it should be, right? It's in Waco. Baylor takes it.
Yeah, I agree. Baylor would take it, in my opinion. Sawyer Robertson, a very impressive quarterback. I do agree that Kansas State has a chance to make some noise in the Big 12 with Donuters back and Avery Johnson still being a very good quarterback. But yeah, in Waco at Baylor's home, Baylor takes it.
Yeah, we've all been in agreement so far. I think Baylor has one of the most talented teams, whether they can really execute in those high-pressure spots against the Kansas State team. That will be tested this weekend. I think Kansas State is going to be kind of on a roll, feeling good about themselves. But like I said, I don't know if they're a contender yet, quite on that level of Baylor with their talent and with the best quarterback. I got to side with the quarterback play and the home team as well. I'm going Baylor.
You mentioned talent. I love the talent of both of these teams, and the real key to success for both of them has been offensive consistency. Kansas State has struggled with it more than Baylor has. I think that's what's going to give Baylor the slight edge. I'm going to take Baylor in this game, but watch out for Kansas State. They showed what they can do last week. Now it's just, can they find that consistency? But then we go to a Texas matchup. We got the number 11 Texas Tech Red Raiders taking on the Houston Cougars. Who do you got?
Houston almost lost to Oregon State. That's just what I'm going to start off with. Texas Tech averages 500 yards per game. I mean, they're the best team in the Big 12. Give me Texas Tech.
Yeah, same. Texas Tech offensive firepower is off the charts, 500 yards, as you said. I think that Houston may put up a good fight with their defense, but as an 11th-ranked team, they're still going to take it. So the Raiders for me.
You know what? Give me the Cougs. Give me the Cougs. Give me the Cougs. They're at home. Hear me out. Hear me out.
He's back.
They're at home. A win is a win. I don't care that it looked like crap against Oregon State. They looked really bad to start. They came back. They showed some resilience. Connor Wegman is going to go out there and pull the upset of the century.
All right.
And take down Texas Tech. They're very talented. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to disrespect. Though maybe I am because I'm picking Houston. And I'm picking them to beat them by multiple scores.
Multiple scores.
And I'm picking them to win, 31-21.
Wow. All right. I think that this is the game you could potentially see that. Houston has shown spurts of looking really good. They've also shown spurts of looking really bad. And you mentioned Oregon State and how bad that looked. It was bad, folks. If you watched that game, if you were up late on a Friday night watching Houston take on Oregon State, that was one of the sloppiest games of football I've ever watched. And Oregon State not only contended, but they gave Houston opportunities to win. Houston didn't capitalize on those, or they gave them the opportunities to win. They eventually pushed it over the edge. Some of them, though, they didn't capitalize on. Some of those opportunities, they could have won this game without going to overtime, is all I'm saying.
Listen, it's Corvallis. Weird things happen. Pacific Northwest, whether it's Pullman, whether it's Corvallis, weird stuff happens. And, I know I was the horse holder earlier. Now I'm just like,
let them go.
Let them go. Give me Houston, baby.
Free range. All right. I think that Houston, also the late kickoff time, so I'll give you that too. But I don't think Texas Tech is going to give Houston those same opportunities that they were barely able to grab a hold of and capitalize on. I'm going to take the Red Raiders over Houston. Moving on, though, we have Kansas and UCF. A couple teams looking to bounce back. Good bit to prove they feel like even with the winning records. Who do you got?
So Kansas lost to Cincinnati by a field goal, but I think that UCF has a better defense than Cincinnati, right? I mean, we talked about how Cincinnati might not be the most complete team. It's at the bounce house. I think UCF will bounce back against these Kansas Jayhawks. Give me UCF.
I think the Jayhawks take it for this one. I think they need to find ways to play more consistent on offense, and they can make some big plays. I think they take it at UCF.
Yeah, I'm actually going UCF here as well. I'm agreeing with Xavier. I think the home environment is going to be big for UCF, and they have a talented team. They have Scott Frost, who's starting to build a little momentum. Obviously, last week was a road bump, but I think Jalen Daniels went crazy last week. He's not the type of guy where I expect him to go out and do that every single week. He can. He has the talent, but I haven't seen it yet. I think he comes down to earth
while UCF takes off in that rocket ship that goes in the third quarter, and I think they pull off a big win.
I think I'm kind of on the opposite side of this opinion with you. I think that Jalen Daniels is the type of guy who's going to put that together week after week, being as experienced as he is.
4 touchdowns?
I wouldn't put it past him. I think that, I mean, you look at the team you look at this game that they just played, and I think that Cincinnati probably has a better overall team than what you're looking at in UCF. Right. Kansas is ramped up from playing a team like that. They got to look at a really good team in Cincinnati. Now they kind of get to step down a level. It is at the bounce house, so that is a problem. But I think that the offense is going to do its thing. Jalen Daniels is going to do his thing. I think this is going to be another game where he strings together a great performance. Maybe not quite to that same caliber, but at least around there. He'll give them a chance to win, and I think that they will take it. Give me Kansas over UCF. But that moves us to our feature game this week. The Colorado Buffaloes taking on the TCU Horned Frogs in Fort Worth. Who are you taking?
It's down in Fort Worth. Josh Hoover's home. That TCU offense is going to be too much for them Colorado Buffaloes to handle. I said it earlier that the defensive backs will have to show out and have a good game, which they were expected to this year. They just haven't been able to. I mean, we see Makari Vickers struggle, Tion Park struggle. They need R.J. Johnson back for this game, right? Salter and that offensive line will be able to run the ball and pass. I do think it will kind of be a little bit of offensive shootout, right? But I think the Buffs will lose in that shootout.
Yeah, I agree. I think TCU at home is a tall order for the Buffs defense. Obviously, yeah. So I think unless CU dominates time of possession and keeps the quarterback off TCU's quarterback off the field, I think TCU takes it at their house.
Yeah, it's back where it all began. I'm in G. Carter Stadium. I remember watching the game that day, the first game of the Coach Prime era, not expecting anything, and I think that's what. If you're CU, you have to go into this game. You can't expect anything. You have to have nothing to lose because you're staring down the barrel of 2-6 right now. And while I think that they could come out and, again, like by BYU, put up a little bit of a fight, I think TCU's offense and the road environment, coupled with some of Salter's mental mistakes that may wear on them, and just kind of the weight of those past 2 losses, or not past 2, but to Georgia Tech and to BYU, of games that kind of got away from them that they should have won, they may not be able to put it together, at least right now.
Yeah, I think, there's no graphics on the screen for a reason. I don't know I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm also wearing purple for a reason, so I can look good with this.
I got purple too.
TCU's offense with Josh Hoover is airing the heck out of the ball. Colorado's defense can't stop a clock. That is going to be put to the test big time in this game. It's a bad-looking matchup. And Colorado's offense sort of spinning its tires as of late and going into this game. They're going to need them to step up. Don't know if they can do that. But you mentioned the last time they went down to Fort Worth. And the last time that Coach Prime took a trip to Fort Worth, he left with a win in an offensive shootout, which is exactly what we're in store for this week. Give me the Buffs by 1,000,000 over TCU. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here on SBS Football Live. For Liam, Harrison, Xavier, and Aditya, thank you very much for joining us, and you heard it here first.